Thank you for joining me for today's video. And today is our fourth video in the Release and Refresh series. And in this series, we've been looking at different parts of the body. And more specifically, we've been working with the intention to release chronic or common tension areas in those different areas of the body and then also bring more circulation, hydration to those areas once we've loosened them up. And we've been using different kinds of therapeutic techniques. We've been working with therapeutic poses and some movement. We've been working with our therapeutic balls, and we've been using tennis balls. If you don't have actual therapy balls or massage balls, they work well as well. So we're going to continue that in this video, and our focus for this video will be arms, shoulders, and neck. And so, as I mentioned, we're going to be working with some of the accessories that we have been using in the previous videos. So you'll need things like maybe some yoga blankets. If you don't have yoga blankets, several, or maybe not several, but at least 3 to 4 towels would be useful. And then if you have blocks, we're going to perhaps utilize those. Cushions, firm pillows. You might even use a hand towel. And then, of course, we will use 2 tennis balls. And if you don't have two, you can certainly make do with one. And I'll explain how you can do that when we get to that point. And if you happen to have a smaller therapy ball, and I have a melt ball here, but there are other brands as well of different therapy balls. And we're going to be working with the hands today a little bit. And the smaller balls work well, a little bit better with the hands. Now, that being said, if you don't have a smaller therapy ball, then the tennis ball will be just fine. We'll be able to still do the work and get some results using the larger tennis balls as well. But I just wanted to give you some options in case you had some choices available to you. So let's gather up all of our accessories and let's get started. So let's get started today. And we're focusing on, as I mentioned, arms, shoulders, and neck, but we're actually going to start with the hands before we move into those other areas of the body. And what I'm going to do is use a couple of blocks here to create a little mini table for myself to work with the hand. Now, if you don't have blocks, you could easily just work at a table just for this first portion and then come back to your mat afterwards. You could also just work on the floor. I like to use the blocks so I'm not having to kind of bend over and lean a lot. It makes it a little more comfortable for me. So see what works for you. Go ahead and set up yourself in a way that works for you. And as I had mentioned in the introduction, if you have a smaller therapy ball, this is where you're going to want to use it. And if you don't, not a problem. You can use a tennis ball still. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate with the tennis ball since I think that might be what the majority of people have. That's a little more common, I think. So we'll start off by placing the ball on our little makeshift table here. And it doesn't matter which hand you start with, but we're going to place our hand right there in the middle of the hand, right on the tennis ball, and just let the weight of your hand sink. So notice if you're kind of shrugging your shoulder or engaging through the arm, and just kind of really let the weight of the arm and the hand sink into the ball there. And I often like to use my other hand for a little added weight, especially if I'm using the tennis ball. With the smaller therapy ball, you will tend to feel the pressure and sensation a lot more easily. And if you are using that, be mindful that it's not too intense because, of course, we're looking for that just right sensation. We're not looking for too much intensity. This isn't a deep tissue massage or anything like that. So if you're using the smaller balls, please be mindful of that. With the tennis ball, you're not going to really achieve that because it's just accessing more surface area on your hand, and so it won't be as intense. But we can still get some benefit of this. Now, once we just let the weight settle at that center spot, and this is a marma point in the hand, then we will actually do some movement and do some rotations here, circular movements, And we'll do that. Maybe take some nice breaths, nice big breaths as we're doing this movement. And then, of course, in the other direction, we'll do the circular movement here, breathing, just noticing how that feels. And then come back to stillness. And then you can slowly take the hand off. So we worked right in the middle. Again, I mentioned that's a marma point. Now we're going to work with the heel of the hand. And there's a couple of marma points here at the heel of the hand, right at the base of the thumb joint, and then also closer to the middle of the hand down by the wrist. So what we'll do to access that is to bring the ball kind of to the heel of the hand or under the heel of the hand. And then we're just going to roll the heel of the hand side to side there. So just go ahead and find a way to move the ball side to side there at the heel of the hand. And you might notice again some nice massaging kind of sensation. We're looking for that just right sensation. So if whatever you're using causes any intensity, just make sure you do back off so that it's not too intense or definitely not painful. Good. So after we do that for several breaths, we're going to do something similar right at the base of the fingers. So we'll kind of go side to side at the base of the fingers. And we do this for a handful of breaths. So make sure you're taking those nice breaths as you're doing this, noticing how this feels. And you could even kind of do some smaller movements there. So it's not so much side to side, but just kind of like a little shaking, vibrating movement. That can also feel good here at the base of the fingers. A little more targeted that way as well, under each finger. And then once we do that, the next thing we're going to do is the outer edge, the pinky edge of that hand. So kind of just roll. And so you could be going sideways directly on the side of the hand, or you might kind of move it at some angles here. And that can also feel good to access the tissue there. So when we do these last two areas, are common areas of tissue congestion, and you might feel the little bit of tenderness as you work those areas. So just doing a few more different movements there to access the side of the hand. Awesome. All right. So then let's do the other hand. So again, starting with the middle, just letting the weight sink. And once we really let the weight of the hand sink, we could go into little rotations. Just noticing if you start tensing. Sometimes I notice my hand and arm activating. Try to keep them relaxed as you do these movements in both directions. And then find stillness again. Take a breath. And then we'll go to the heel of the hand. So going side to side here, trying to get from one side of the wrist to the other side of the wrist, but not on the wrist. We're on the heel of the hand. Breathing with this. Trying to maintain our awareness here in the body with this movement, with how it feels. And then we'll shift to the base of the fingers here. And again, we can start off with a side to side movement, one side to the other side. And then we could also at some point add those kind of more vibrating movements right under each of the fingers. So you can kind of play with that, explore the different movements, see how each of those feel. And then the last one we'll do is again the outer edge, the side, pinky side of the hand there. And you can adjust the angle of the hand a little bit to access a little differently. See how that feels. Taking those breaths. Awesome. All right, so once we've done that with the ball, then we're going to actually take the ball in between the hands and just kind of roll it around. So just kind of free form almost. Free form All different kinds of movements. Maybe you go in circles, maybe you go up and down, maybe you go side to side. Just going even up onto the fingers. So just kind of rolling. And you might do it a little slower. I'm kind of going a little fast there. I was being speedy in showing you that, but you might go a little slower. So see what feels good to you today. Just work out whatever else we might have missed. Awesome. And then we're going to go ahead and put that tennis ball down. And then we're going to actually try to isolate the joints of the fingers. So I'm going to bring my hands facing the camera, so that you can see this a little better. But you don't have to do it this way. I find it sometimes easier just to have my hands facing each other. But basically, we're going to do one finger at a time, and I'm undulating my fingers here. I'm trying to access and move at each of the finger joints. So I'm trying to get some mobility in each of the finger joints here. And we'll do that 3 to 4 times and then go into the next finger. And it is a little difficult to isolate because each finger, so if the other fingers move at the same time, that's okay. As you can see, mine are. And then we'll move on to the third. And it's a little tricky to get movement into each of those joints of the finger. But we're going to try to do like a little undulating, a little worm-like movement with the fingers. And then, of course, the pinky. Just so that we can keep mobility at these joints that we sometimes forget about. And then they get stiff. And then, of course, the thumbs. So doing rotations in the thumbs in both directions. And after we do that, now we're just going to shake it out. So shake out those hands, flicking off any lingering restriction, blockage, stagnation. We're just flicking it off. Good way to kind of reintroduce circulation and hydration through this kind of movement. Re-energize. All right, wonderful. And then let's just kind of sit here. Pause for a moment. Maybe close your eyes, palms up if that feels good to you. And just notice, bring awareness to the hands, the fingers, and just notice what you feel. And just take a few more breaths here, observing sensation, energy at your hands. One more nice deep breath. Wonderful. And so now let's move upward into the arms. So we will position ourselves in a comfortable seat. If you need to have a support under your sit bones, please do. Bringing the hands to either side. Let's walk that right hand out a little bit, and we're going to press into the right hand, shifting our weight into that hand, making sure the shoulder's not hunched upward toward the ear, so trying to release the shoulder as well. And then bring the left arm straight out to the side. So take a moment to feel your right hand pressing into the floor, supporting your body in this slight side bend, and feel your sit bones settling, especially the left sit bone, making sure the left hip, sit bone, thigh aren't lifting. You could easily put supports if your knees are a little bit raised and you need a little support. But we're really trying to ground through both sit bones as well as that right hand. And the left arm then is going to extend out and allow yourself to traction or gently pull through that left arm. So you're going to feel these opposing forces in the body. The right hand pressing down, the sit bones, the legs pressing down, and that left arm pulling away from you gently. And then we're going to begin a little bit of movement, conscious movement, really slow and mindful. So turning the palm upward and then back down. And we're moving from the shoulder. So it's not just a hand movement or a wrist movement. It's from the shoulder to basically turn the arm and the hand upward. So again, slowly, mindfully. Your core is gently engaged so that your rib cage is lifted, even though we're pressing down into the floor with the hand on the lower body. So the next time the palm is upward, lengthen through the arm and continue lengthening as you slowly and consciously move that arm upward. moving it up, reaching over the head, wherever you're able to reach to. So wherever you feel you need to stop your place of resistance, just feel free to stop there, wherever that is. Hold and breathe. Continuing to lengthen traction through that left arm. And then turn the palm the other way, downward, and begin to go down again. Continuing to lengthen gently through the arm. So it's an activated movement. We're doing some activated conscious movement here. And then once you come back to the horizon, turn it up, lengthen, activate gently. And we're going to do this one more time after this. When you get to the end range of motion there, lengthening, turning the palm down. Last one, once you get back to the horizon, turn the palm up, lengthen. Just notice the sensation there. We're really trying to activate and work with that fascial network here through the hand, through the arm, into the shoulder, even into the side body. You might be feeling this. And then once we come back again, just lengthen one more time. Now with that next breath, bend the supporting hand, supporting arm, and press off gently, bringing that up. So both arms up, and then exhale, let it go, release. And maybe you close your eyes and just notice. Notice the sensations through both arms. Notice the energy. And then, of course, we'll do the other side. So just leaning into that left side, push down into that hand, release the weight through that arm, grounding downward through the hand. And again, of course, making sure that you're engaging the core and lifting the rib cage so you're not sinking. All right, so we're grounding into the hand, we're grounding into the sit bones, but upper body stays lifted. And now that right arm will come out to the side, straight out to the side. Find that gentle activation to traction the arm away so you feel those opposing forces again. And then we'll turn a few times from the shoulder, consciously moving, feeling the nuances of the movement as we turn the arm up and down a few times. And the next time it turns up, now continue to traction, continue to activate and lengthen away as you do this slow movement upward. Finding where your edge is, breathing and lengthening, maybe just a little bit more traction, and then turn the palm. And coming back down, slowly, conscious movement back down to the side, lengthen, turn the palm, turn the arm. It's coming from the shoulder, not just the wrist. Breathe, keep the breath flowing, and really notice the sensation as you move in this way, this activated conscious movement of the arm. We're going to do one more. Breathing, of course. And once you come back to the side there, we're going to allow the supporting arm to bend, press into the floor to come back up. Both arms out on an in-breath, and then exhale. Let them go. Maybe you close your eyes again and pause. And just notice what you feel through both arms now. Taking a few breaths. And then we're going to refresh the arms a bit, get the circulation and hydration going with some undulation. So side bending again, but this time moving a little faster, finding a rhythm, finding some momentum, making it more of an undulating movement to, I like to kind of just playfully push off one hand to the other, side to side. Let the head get involved, to let the neck begin to loosen up. flowing movement and energy through the arms as well as the neck. And then we'll do one more undulating movement. Come back to center. And this is going to be more of a C-shape undulation. So uh, my right shoulder will go off to the right, but my head will go off to the left, and then the opposite. So as my left shoulder goes to the left, my head goes to the right. So it's kind of like I'm making a C shape with the body. And I can still gently push off with my hands if I want. Just see how this feels as you make this kind of C shape. And then slowly come back to center. Okay, pausing for a moment again. And then we're going to work our way up and begin to move into the neck region, the upper chest region as well. So to start off, let's just slowly move that head left to right and just notice the range of motion in the neck. Notice at what points you might feel a little hesitancy or restriction or resistance to the movement, where you might be holding a little tension. And then come back to center. And we're going to do a couple of movements here that actually will target very specific areas of tissue around some of our nerves and arteries in this area, this upper chest neck region. And so it's very subtle work. And we're going to start by placing your left hand at the sternum. So right at the top of the chest there at the sternum. And this just offers a little bit of traction. And then we'll turn the head over to the right just a little bit until you feel the first kind of sensation in the neck or anywhere in the body in the chest. And then imagine that you have a balloon on your or attached to your left ear. And let that balloon rise up, float up slowly. And let the other ear go downward. And just stop when you feel the sensation. Take a deep breath. Wherever you feel that first sensation, take a nice big breath here. One or two nice big breaths. And then slowly the balloon deflates, and so we come back to center. And then staying turned over to the right, now the balloon is on the other ear. So the right ear begins to float up. Left ear begins to come down. Where that first sensation is, just stop. Breathe. Nice big breath in and out. And then again, we just come back, float back to neutral. And then turn the head back to center. Release the hand. And again, let's just check the neck a little bit. See if there might be some difference here in our movement. Maybe, maybe not, but let's check. And then we'll do the other side. So the other hand comes in tractions at that sternum. And we'll turn the head just a little bit over to the left side, just finding that first place of sensation. It could be resistance, it could be stretch, whatever that sensation feels like to you. And imagine the balloon on the right ear floating up. Again, only going to that first place of sensation. We're not looking for intense stretch. We're looking for first place of sensation, and that's why or how we're able to very specifically access and target tissue around such subtle aspects of the body as nerve and artery. And then again, slowly coming back to neutral, keeping the head turned over to the left. Now the balloon is floating up, pulling up your left ear. Pause at that first place of sensation. Take a big breath or two. And then slowly come back to neutral and back to center. Release the hand, and again, side to side, just kind of notice. Hopefully you feel Some change, some shift, some difference in the movement of the neck. All right, come back to center, maybe a little side to side with the ears, a little undulating of just the head, side to side. And then back to center once again. So now we're going to move onto our hands and knees for a little spinal movement before we head to the mat. So let's come into table pose and just do a little cat-cow movement here. So placing those hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips, and whenever you feel ready, undulating the spine in our cat-cow. So inhaling crown and tail up, releasing the belly and the chest down. Exhaling, bringing the crown and the tail down and pulling upward through the navel and the heart space. Just flow. Flow your breath, flow the energy. Breathe along that spine, from the head, through the neck, all the way down the back to the tailbone. Awesome. And coming back to your neutral table. And from your table pose, let's just come upright. And let's set ourselves up for our next pose. So for this, we will need supports to go under the head. I have two blankets folded, and then I have I have two towels folded for my head, but I have a blanket folded for under my pelvis. So I want to try to have about the same height. So whatever you might be using, go ahead and set that up. We're going to do a half frog pose, but we will also be utilizing our tennis ball to create some release in the pectoral region of the upper chest. So as we get into half frog, I'll demonstrate how to do this, but I would just want to explain before we get into the pose, where we're going to be working with the ball is in two spots. One will be if we find the sternal notch, the top of the sternum, and then our collarbone, the clavicle. If we follow the clavicle toward the shoulder a little bit more than halfway down, that's where we're going to place the ball first when we get down into our pose. So not on the shoulder, not all the way to the shoulder, but kind of about halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way was where we're going to start with that. And then we'll also move that ball closer to the center of our body, right kind of where the sternum is, the edge, the outer edge of the sternum, again, right below the collarbone or clavicle. So we're going to access the pectoral muscles by working in this region here with the ball once we get into our pose. So have that ball nearby, but we will bring the pelvis to that lower support and bending the leg and bringing the knee at the level of the hip and trying to bring the heel under the knee to come into that half frog formation for the lower body. And then the tennis ball, I'm going to place under on the left side. So I've got my right knee in half frog, but the tennis ball, I will, as I come down, I'm going to place, like I said, we're going to look for that area toward the shoulder under the collarbone on the pectoral muscles. Not going all the way to the shoulder joint though. So once I find that and I place the ball there, then I can release and bring my hands into that half frog position. And notice again, if it's too intense, then please readjust the position, and you might just have to move it a little bit one direction or another before you settle somewhere. And once you do settle somewhere, just take a few breaths, let your body weight sink into that region. And as you breathe and you take those breaths, you're going to feel some of that kind of massaging sensation as your body expands into and presses into the ball. And then we'll take the right hand here in front of the chest, and we'll actually do a little bit of movement by pressing into the hand to kind of lift that right shoulder up and turn the chest
toward that right side a little bit to create a little bit of, again, more of a massaging sensation there at the ball. Now you could maintain your left arm in a cactus, or you could stretch it out in a half T as well. I'm losing my ear pod here. So continue to just see how that feels to you. If you feel like the movement is too much and you just want to hold in stillness, that's okay too. And then take a moment to pause. And then bend your left elbow again. Lift yourself up slightly so that we can position the ball for the second spot I was telling you, which again is going to be a little closer. It's still under the collarbone, but a little closer to the center. And once you find that spot, again, not on the bone, not on your sternum, to the outside of the sternum, we're on the muscle tissue, we're on the connective tissue there at the pectoral region. So again, you might choose to have it in your left arm in cactus shape or half T, whichever feels best to you as you first settle into it. I tend to like being in cactus arms at first. Let's see what feels good to you. And then we'll start with that movement again. So again, pressing the hand into the floor to rock the body here a little bit. Turning the right shoulder upward. Notice if that left arm is resisting, if it's tensing. If other parts of your body are tensing, it might be too intense. That's a good indication that maybe you need to back off or find another spot. A couple more breaths here with this movement. And then just find stillness again. And then bringing that left hand back onto the mat. Slowly press it up. Bring that leg back, that right leg back. Let's just come into crocodile for a moment. So resting your forehead on your hands or maybe on your forearms if you want to reach for your opposite elbows. Take a couple of big breaths here. Notice how it feels. And then, of course, we'll do the other side. So I think you have the hang of it, hopefully, where we're positioning the ball. But I always like to get my lower body in position first. So bringing my left knee out into half frog. And then placing the tennis ball over on that right side, more toward the shoulder, under the collarbone. And then settling into, again, that half frog. Letting go, noticing where am I holding, where am I resisting? Noticing the intensity of the sensation there at the tennis ball. And making any adjustments to find that just right sensation. Breathing, so important. It's the breath that coaxes the release of the tissue here. And then once we feel a little settled there, we can perhaps add some movement by bringing the left hand to the floor. And I could straighten out that right arm as well. It actually feels a little more intense to me, but it's still not too intense. It still feels, it's a comfortable discomfort is how I like to sometimes think of it, because it's not all perfectly comfortable, but it's something I can work through. It's a little bit challenging, but it's what I can work through with my breath. And that's where we want to be. We want to be able to keep the rest of the body relaxed as we do this. Awesome. So then come back to center. Let's bring the other hand onto the mat so that we can reposition the ball. If you've got long hair like mine, I've got to manage my hair as well. And then we come back down, bringing the ball to the outside of the sternum under that collarbone. And again, settling. After a few breaths, maybe as you take these first few breaths, you really feel the weight of the body sink. Maybe you even visualize the release that we're creating, the spaciousness, the softening we're creating there in that area of the pectoral muscles, the upper chest region. And once again, if you are wanting to do a little massaging movement here, we bring the left hand onto the mat in front of the chest to lift gently upward. Make this a slow, deliberate movement. Breathe with it. Maybe continue to visualize if you're using visualization in that space. Visualizing ease and softening. And when that feels complete, let's just come to stillness for a moment. And then once again, that right hand will come up. We'll adjust the leg back. Take the ball out of the way. Once again, crocodile. And just settling into that. For a few breaths. Noticing what you notice. Feeling what you feel. And then slowly bringing those hands underneath the shoulders, pressing up. And let's just come into a child pose here. You might take your knees wide if you want. And just stretch those arms gently. Take those arms out to the side like a T. Reach out, stretch those arms again here. And then take those arms either along the sides of your body, back behind you, reaching along the floor, or to your lower back, resting and reaching to the opposite elbow on your lower back. One or two more breaths here. And then gently come back upright. And we're going to ease our way now onto the mat on our backs. So taking away the lower support, but you might want to keep the upper support. In fact, you will need a support for your head. So what you have already might be sufficient. You might need additional, so keep other stuff nearby, cushions or blankets or towels. And now we're going to grab both our tennis balls and have them nearby. So just have them within arm's reach as you come down. Let's support the head. Now, the thing we want to make sure we want the head supported, but we don't want it pushed up. So if you have too big a support here, maybe you adjust that, take away a layer, or maybe use something else so that your head's not pushed up too far. And once we're down here, I'm going to move my balls a little bit out of the way so that I can take my arms out. Let's take your arms out like a T, and let's bring the knees together in constructive rest. So the feet go wide, knees come together, and just rest, the lower body, the knees against each other, the legs against each other, arms out to the side. Take a moment to just settle here and feel your back flattening, your lower back flattening, your shoulder blades settling into the floor a bit. And then we will take those tennis balls. So this is where if you have two, I'm going to demonstrate with two, but if you only have one, you could do one side at a time. So certainly you could pause the video and do one side and then do the other side and then resume as we go to the next spot. But our first spot is going to be right at the upper inner edge of our scapulae. And I'm going to actually
get up to show you this so that you can see where we're going to be with this. So the first spot will be kind of right here. Well, let's do it this way. Right here at the upper inner edge of our shoulder blade, our scapula bone there. And then after that, we're going to roll up to the top of the shoulder, this upper trap point here, which is also a marma point. So those are the two spots that we're going to do. So we're going to start at the lower spot. So as I come back down, I'm going to lift my shoulders and look for that spot, that corner, that top corner. And this can be really ouchy for some people. It can be really sensitive. So be mindful. And if it does feel really intense, and again, we're not going to be on the bone, so make sure you're not on your shoulder blade. Make sure you're not on your spine. We want to be in that center area of muscle tissue, connective tissue, fascial tissue. So set yourself up, and again, if it's really intense, you might just need to reposition the balls. The other thing you can do sometimes is add a little height if it's really intense. So if you have another blanket or towel, and if you add height to your head, that might feel a little better. So see what works for you as you just then try to settle into that shape again that we started out in. So constructive rest, knees together, lower body relaxed, arms out to the side. Breathe into it. After a couple breaths of settling into this, we can add movement if you wish. This is an exploration for you based on what feels good to you. So I will offer all sorts of different suggestions. You can explore them and see what works best. So if you would like to add some movement, sometimes I will do one arm at a time and just take the arm across the body and then back down, making it a nice, slow, mindful movement. A couple times on one side, and then of course, doing the same on the other side. Letting go of where I might be holding. Another movement that can feel really good is almost like an angel movement, where you're making angel, like you know how we make angels in the snow with the arms. That's why I call it the angel movement. And kind of going up and down, upward toward the head with the arms, and then down towards the feet with the arms. So explore, and maybe there's other movements. Maybe just taking the arms up to the ceiling and maybe bending the elbows down and then straightening the arms up and elbows down. So there's so many different ways we can move our arms here. So you may want to explore movement for another few breaths, or you may want to just come back to stillness as well. One more breath. And then we're going to roll the body toward the lower end of the mat just a little bit. So as you roll your body down, pick up your hips and roll your body down just a little bit so that now you can feel the tennis balls right up at the top of the shoulder there where I had shown you before when I had come up to demonstrate. And of course, reposition or retweak based on what feels good. And you can actually even see the balls kind of sticking out now. You can see it from above if you were looking at me. And you might have to adjust your headrest accordingly too. And once you have that just right sensation at the tops of the shoulders, at the bottom of the neck, once again, lay your arms out, come back into constructive rest with the lower body. Take a few initial breaths to just sink, to notice how you might be resisting, and try to release any resistance. Again, it might be a little tender. We're looking for that just right sensation. We want to feel sensation, but we don't want to be in pain. We don't want to be too intense with it. Otherwise, we'll just start kind of protecting and resisting again, and it'll be difficult to move through the resistance, to ease that resistance or soften the tissue then. So once we feel comfortable with our positioning and we've settled, again, if you want to play with movement, you could play with the same kind of movement that I demonstrated before with the single arm going across the body. You could play with the angel arm movement. Whatever you're doing, make it mindful, make it slow and conscious. For this one, I really like the other one where we raise the arms to the ceiling and then we bend the elbows, bringing the elbows back to this particular movement feels especially good to me at these spots. But you do what feels good to you. You explore. It could be something I haven't even done or demonstrated. It could be some other movement that just your body is asking you to do. And I say intuitively follow it, always honoring the information your body offers you, the suggestions, and then noticing how that feels. And the other thing I like to do here sometimes is just give myself that hug. So reaching for the opposite shoulder, taking a deep breath. And then, of course, the other arm on top to make it balanced. And then whatever you're doing, whatever kind of movement you're doing, just come back to stillness here for one or two more breaths. And then gently rolling or lifting the head a little bit to take the tennis balls out from underneath. Let's take the head support out as well. And just allow the body to be flat on the floor. You might keep the knees up, maybe in constructive rest, maybe apart, or you may choose to just extend the legs here, give the legs and the knees a little stretch, and just take a moment to feel the body here, feel the region at the base of the neck, the upper back, shoulder, tops of the shoulder region that we just worked. Breathing into that, noticing what you feel. And then the last position or movement we're going to do is with the base of the skull, at the neck, base of the skull. And I'm going to demonstrate two options here for you. So we could use the balls again. And in fact, we will be if this again works for you, because this might be a little intense for some people. And so I'm going to give you another option as well. But if the balls do work, we're going to place them right at the base of the skull. So we're not going to be on the neck. We're not going to be anywhere on the neck. We're going to be way up at the top. And if you take your fingers, you can actually feel the edge of the skull, and it's way up here. And so we're going to be way up here at the edge of the skull, right below the edge of the skull here on either side of the spine with the tennis balls. So I'll just kind of reposition them again, get my ponytail out of the way to demonstrate where we're going to be with that. Now, if you try that, and if that just feels really intense to you, the other option is to take a hand towel and to roll it up really tight. So if I roll this hand towel up really tight, I can then take this hand towel and position it, bring it all the way up to the base of the skull, like I was saying, above the neck, above the cervical vertebrae, or at the top of the cervical vertebrae, I should say. And then we'll lie down like this. So while I have this here, I'm just going to show this to you. Come down, lying down with that rolled towel there. The legs can be straight out, or you could be back in constructive rest if that feels better to you. And then just gently pulling on the towel and resting your hands at the top of the chest there. Rest your shoulder blades and your arms down.
and just create a little traction, just a little gentle pull. So you feel a little pressure there at the base of the skull, at the top of the neck. And then you would do the movement side to side like this. You could also just lay your arms out almost like cactus arms and also be able to do that movement, accessing the base of the skull with that rolled hand towel. So those are the options if you're going to use the hand towel. If you are okay with the pressure with the tennis balls, then we'll come back down and place those tennis balls right there, right at the base of the skull. Now, in order to keep them there, we'll have to use our hands. So just keep your hands there in position. I like to just relax my elbows to the side, just as if I had my hands interlaced under my head and I was supporting my head with my hands, except I just have the balls there instead of my interlaced hands. And so just see if you can settle the weight of your head into this. Breathing into the sensation. For most people, this will be tender. But again, as long as it's not too intense, you might be able to just work through it. Discomfort is okay, because that's what we're trying to work through. And if there is that tendency for congestion here, then there usually is the discomfort that goes along with it. But, of course, I'll repeat one more time, if it's too intense, please back off. Find a slightly different position or just go to the rolled towel instead. We're not looking for deep tissue work here. We're looking for that just right sensation to free up the fascial restriction, the connective tissue restriction, muscular restriction. And once again, in this case, also marma restriction. This is a marma point. These are marma points as well. So breathe into them. And as we've been doing, once we settle, we can also do movement. So you could do a little gentle side to side. And it's going to be really small. It's not going to be as much as if you're using the towel. With the towel, you can really turn your head side to side to get some nice massaging feeling against that rolled hand towel. With the tennis balls, it's going to be a really small movement side to side. But you could also do up and down. Again, a very small up and down movement where you move your chin toward the chest a little bit and then move your chin up a little bit. You could reposition the balls slightly out just a teeny bit to get a little bit, cover a little bit more surface area along the edge of the skull there. And so explore mindfully, paying attention to, again, the intensity, honoring your body, exploring movement in a way that works for you. And finally, maybe come back to stillness wherever you are. And then gently lift that head, release those tennis balls, bring them out to the side. Laying the head flat. And then maybe we bring those knees apart if you were still together in constructive rest, arms at your side in a T shape. Let's just roll the head to one side, roll the knees to the same side. Let's just kind of rock the head and the knees gently from side to side. And then coming back to center, maybe hugging the knees into the chest. Flattening the back. And if you feel comfortable with this, tuck your chin, engage the core, and use your core strength to lift the head, not using the neck, but using the core, shoulders relaxed, squeezing into a ball, breathe, and then exhale, ease it back down. Then extend those legs. Let's set up for Shavasana for final relaxation. So if you need supports under your knees, your head, whatever you need now, for this final pose, go right ahead and give yourself that. And then once you're there, just surrender. Surrender your weight, the entire weight of your body now into the floor. Taking a few big breaths, letting go. And then bringing attention to the area of the body that we worked today, the areas we worked. Maybe starting with the hands and fingers and noticing how they feel, the wrists, the arms, the shoulders. Noticing that area of the chest, the upper part of the chest, right under those collarbones. Feeling the area of the shoulder blades, in between those shoulder blades. Feeling the base of the neck, the tips of the shoulders. And then noticing how the neck, all the way up to the base of the skull, into the head, how that feels as well. Perhaps using some imagery or visualization to breathe, further cleansing, further easing, further softening into those areas. Imagining those areas of your body open, spacious, cleared, refreshed, and released. Take 3 more nice big breaths in and out. Maybe on the exhale you sigh or sound out if that feels right for you. Whenever you finish your third breath, you can begin to gently move the body. Begin with little movements or stretches, wherever you're called to do that. Just tuning into the natural wisdom, your inner wisdom, your intuition telling you what you might need right now to reawaken. Whenever you feel ready to flatten out the back by bringing your knees up, go ahead and do that. And then whenever you feel ready to turn to one side, maybe even pausing for a moment on your side there, feel free to do that. And then we'll meet up again, upright in a comfortable seat. Namaste. I hope you enjoyed this release and refresh video having to do with our arms, our shoulders, and our neck. And if you've been following this series and if you've been doing the other videos, I hope that you've been able to experience release and refreshment and ease of congestion in those areas of the body as we worked our way from the feet up to the top of the body and the neck. And if there were certain movements we did, certain poses, certain ball work that we did that it was especially useful and beneficial to you, I hope that you continue to do those pieces on your own. So if you are able to do the full practices again and watch the full videos again, by all means, that would be wonderful. I hope that you're able to take advantage and do that. But even if you're not, even if you don't have the time to do the full videos, I hope that you can take bits and pieces that you have learned and gotten some benefit from, and just do those whenever you feel the need to create space in your body.
And I actually encourage you to do some of these things maybe a few times a week, especially if you experience chronic tension in some of these areas. Doing it just once and then kind of forgetting about it doesn't really relieve that chronic tension. It only feels good for a short period of time, as you probably know. As we go about doing our usual activity, going back into those repetitive movements of our lives, we will find ourselves back into those spaces of tension. So I do encourage you to do aspects of these practices, if not all of it, multiple times and perhaps regularly throughout the week, different pieces of each practice. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this series. I hope you enjoyed this video and the series overall. And until next time, be well.